Hi everybody, my name is Katie. And since everybody has been talking about how much the men in our lives think about the Roman Empire, I wanted to stop and tell you how much I think about the Roman Empire all the time. And one of the main reasons I'm thinking about the Roman Empire is because of this absolutely fascinating woman that we're going to talk about today, Agrippina the Elder. And if you don't know her name, that's okay. Because women in ancient history are often completely forgotten unless they are completely vilified. And Agrippina the Elder is very rarely vilified in historical retellings. Historians usually agree that, all around, she was a woman of morals and convictions. But she was not shy about speaking her mind loudly and often, sadly to her own detriment. So, let's get to know her. Even though you are likely thinking about the Roman Empire, but not necessarily Agrippina, you are probably thinking about a lot of her relatives. Chances are you've probably thought about her maternal grandfather once or twice. Chances are you've probably thought about her maternal grandfather. His name was Augustus, and he was the first Roman emperor. So yeah, he's kind of a big deal. His only known biological child was a daughter named Julia, and that is Agrippina's mother. However, her mother was exiled to an island called Pandateria when Agrippina was really young. Her mom is one of those women in ancient history that is incredibly vilified. Even so during Agrippina's life. So she was probably taught her entire life that your mother is a bad woman. And if you want to succeed and avoid the kind of life that she ended up living in exile, don't be like her. Be virtuous, be a good wife, and be a better mother. That is how you succeed to a long life in the Roman Empire as a woman. And this is a tactic in storytelling we call foreshadowing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I just do want to paint a picture of how intertwined this family is. Her grandfather, Augustus, had a stepson named Tiberius. Tiberius and Augustus's daughter were forced to marry each other, even though I don't think either of them was into it at all. So then Agrippina's step-uncle was also her stepfather. So then Tiberius adopted Agrippina's second cousin Germanicus, and then Agrippina married Germanicus, her adopted stepbrother / second cousin. So, super straightforward, right? Agrippina was married to Germanicus, and even though it was a dynastic marriage, there was genuine love and affection there. That was not a given for their time or their rank. Germanicus was a major player in the Roman army, and so he traveled a lot. And in another, not normal situation, Agrippina traveled with him. The wives would usually stay home. She was also a figurehead in the army as well after she saved her husband from certain death in a story in Germany that involves a bridge not getting blown up. We don't have time. But she was cool, and she was well respected both by civilians and the army. The two had 6 children, which if you examine a lot of families from the Roman Empire, that was more than average. One of them was, again, a name you may have heard of, Caligula. That wasn't his real name, I know. It means little boots, but I'm calling him Caligula. He would go on to be a Roman emperor for a time. And another one of their children was Agrippina the Younger, who would go on to be a scandalous Roman empress and the mother of a guy named Nero that you may have heard of. This family of Agrippina and Germanicus was adored throughout the Roman Empire. They were viewed as this young family. I mean, they were the future of Rome, more or less. They kind of remind me of the Kennedy family, because they were powerful, they were rich, they were well connected, and they were viewed as this beautiful example of a family that was the future of their empire. But tragedy struck them all, and maybe 2 of them died of natural causes, and even those may have both been poisoning. Which brings us to the death of Germanicus. Fast forward a little bit, and in 19 AD, Germanicus's adopted dad / Agrippina's stepdad is now emperor. His name is Tiberius, and he is not popular. I have a series called This Fucking Guy, and I've really thought about covering Tiberius. But I really try to tell these stories with lightness and humor, and it is a struggle to find levity in some of the things that Tiberius has been accused of. This fucking sexual predator. Asterisk, maybe. While on military campaign, Germanicus gets very sick very suddenly, and it's obvious that he is clearly dying. The general opinion is that he was poisoned, and it seems like Germanicus agreed with this general opinion, because while he was on his deathbed, he begged Agrippina, please do not go back to Rome with an axe to grind. Do not try to avenge my death. For the sake of your longevity and the longevity of our many children, be fucking cool. Rome was a kill or be killed kind of society, especially amongst those in power. So he was like, babe, do not give anybody a reason to come after you. Oh, but that's not how it went down. Did Tiberius have Germanicus poisoned? We will never know. But you know what? That's not what matters. Because Agrippina, without a doubt in her mind, believed he did. And she was about to make it everyone else's problem. When word that the nationally loved Germanicus had died, when that spread through the empire, it was an ordeal. It was like a national mourning type situation. Again, I just think it's really important to remember that this specific family was viewed as like the shining star for the next generation, as opposed to the Emperor Tiberius. He did not make a lot of public appearances, and people said horrible things about him. Google Tiberius and Capri Island, and I'm gonna leave it at that. So Agrippina is making this journey back to Rome with Germanicus's ashes and her 6 small children. So she is looking like a very sympathetic person. Very easy for people to get on her side. Like, everyone just watched her and their heart broke for her. She was grieving so openly. And know what else she was doing openly? Accusing the emperor of poisoning her husband. When she arrived into Rome to lay her husband's ashes to rest, it was like a huge state event. Everyone came out and attended it. But there were 2 very notable people not in attendance. Tiberius, the emperor, and his mother, Livia. And their absence was very much noticed. Livia is another one of those very vilified women in history. Agrippina lived in Rome for about another 10 years and basically went on to tell anyone that would listen for the next 10 years that she didn't fucking trust the emperor. And everyone else was like, yeah, we don't fucking trust that guy either. Honestly, if she wasn't as connected as she was, like, with her family and politically, I don't think she would have been allowed to talk like that for 10 years. But again, she is the widow that the entire nation grieved with. To bring it back to the Kennedy comparison, I don't necessarily subscribe to the conspiracy theory that the CIA had JFK murdered. But let's say that Jackie O did believe that theory. And for 10 years, she was just telling the media and her friends and anybody that would listen that she believed that the CIA killed her husband. That's kind of what was happening with Agrippina slandering Tiberius. And because Tiberius was so unpopular, everyone was going, I could see it. Also, her kids were clear successors to the throne. On one hand, I do believe that she thought her rank afforded her a layer of protection. But also, I kind of believe she didn't give a fuck. And she was going down with this ship no matter what happened. Anyway, let's get to the sad shit. As Tiberius aged, he really, he grew into his reputation. He grew more and more paranoid and started to put like every single person that had ever crossed him on trial for treason. Which usually when the emperor puts you on trial for treason, it's going to end one of three ways. You're going to be publicly executed, you're going to be forced to commit suicide, or you're going to be exiled to an island that you would not come back from. Which, if you'll remember, that's what happened to Agrippina's mom. Because she was she had a bad reputation of being promiscuous, which no one ever says Agrippina was. Remember, when we went back to the beginning of the story, if you don't act like your mother, you're gonna survive. Along with being a really outspoken opponent of Tiberius, she was pretty active in politics in general. And she was always supporting her children's claim to high-ranking positions. So, of course, as soon as the optics worked into his favor, Agrippina and one of her sons were put on trial for treason. And she was exiled to the same island her mother had been about 25 years prior. Which, it just breaks my heart. Now, I'm not going to say exactly what happened to Agrippina there because it is what scholars call a bummer. But if sources can be believed, she went down talking shit, fighting back, and speaking her mind to the very last minute. That is one of the handful of reasons I think about the Roman Empire all the time. Agrippina the Elder, her daughter Agrippina the Younger, and then of course there's Boudica and Cleopatra. They weren't like in the Roman Empire, but they were kind of. Julia, like we talked about. There's also Messalina. Oh, bless her heart. So yeah, let me know if there's anything else you want to hear about from the Roman Empire. And fuck Tiberius, you know? Cheers, bitches!